Yo, what's up and welcome to another tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how CUBEATZ and PVLACE are making crazy orchestral samples in the style of SOUTHSIDE and PYREX WHIPPA. So first I'm going to show you all the sample, then after that I will break the sample down and show you how I mixed and mastered it. And then after that I will show you how I made a crazy beat to the sample. So please make sure to stay till the end, make sure to leave a like and to subscribe to my channel. And make sure to turn on the post notifications because I'm live streaming a lot where I'm reacting to music and where I'm making beats. So don't miss out on that. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and to check out my latest post. I just posted 2 new Money Man songs co-produced by me. And thank you for this crazy support. When we hit 2K, I will drop a big sample pack, and now let's go on with the video. So I started off with Contact and I used the Orchestral Essentials 2 bank, and I used this preset. I just turned off the reverb and I laid down this pretty simple and repetitive pattern. It's in a D sharp minor scale. I randomized the velocities. It's just some basic chords, but as you can see I turned this F sharp to an F just because it sounded more darker or more like creepier, and then I turned this A sharp to an B for the same reason again, and this is basically all I did, and the finished violin pattern is sounding like this. And for the effects on this main melody, I had this 3-parametric EQ where I took out a lot of the frequencies that I didn't like. Then I had this Valhalla vintage warp where I tweaked the mix and the decay. And then I had this EQ where I cut out some of the lows and some of the highs. Then for the next thing, I used Contact again with the strings of Winterbank. And I used this preset. I turned off the reverb again. And I laid down this cymbal pattern, which without the top notes is basically just some chords. But I just made them short and copied them just for the bounce. And then I just lowered the velocity of some of these chords, just that it gives it more like a realistic feeling. And then with the top line, I just placed some notes that sounded good, and the top line is basically just there to give the whole pattern or like the whole sample more variation, and the finished pattern is sounding like this. Then for the effects on these strings, I had this 3-parametric EQ where I cut out a lot of the lows, and I had this EQ where I cut out some of the frequencies that I didn't like, and I panned it 6% to the left. Then for the next thing, I used Contact again with the Orchestral Essentials 1 bank, and I used this preset. I'm pretty sure I didn't change anything, and I laid down this pretty simple and repetitive pattern. It's basically just triplets to give the whole sample more variation, and I didn't even change the velocities. I just left how it was because I think it sounded cool, and the finished pattern is sounding like this. Then for the effects on these strings, I had this RC20 just for the wobble and the EQ. Then this Valhalla vintage warp where I tweaked the mix and the decay. Then this 3-parametric EQ where I took out some of the frequencies that I didn't like. Then this soothe on the hard setting. And this EQ just to cut out a lot of the lows because they were just not necessary for the whole sample. And I panned it 31% to the left and put it 27% in stereo. Then for the next thing, I had this LA Custom C7 grand piano from Keyscape. And I laid down this pretty simple pattern, as you can see. It's just a bouncy piano with portal on it, which I will show you after I played this pattern. And I randomized the velocities, as you can see, and that's basically it for this piano, and it sounds like this. Then for the effects on this piano, I had the soothe just to get rid of all unwanted and unnecessary frequencies. And then as I set this portal, and I used the Anvil Enigma bank, and I used the Clouds preset, which is pretty fire. I just left it how it was. Then I had this EQ where I took out a lot of the lows and mids and some of the highs just to duck the piano more into the background. And then I had a soothe again with these settings. And then I had this EQ where I took out a lot of the harsh frequencies that were left, and I panned it 25% to the right. Then for the next thing, I had this percloop from Port Alex's kit. The link for that will be in my description. Make sure to check that out. It's a pretty fire pack, and you can use it for every style of sample, so make sure to check that out. And I just time stretched the percloop just to bring it into time, put the declicking mode on generic, and that's basically all I did, and it sounds like this. And then for the next thing, I had this Echoes accent from Alex's kit again, and I just left it how it was, time stretched it again, put the declicking mode on generic, and allowed the volume by a bit. And I had this focus accent from the same kit again, and I'm showing you all of these 3 elements at the same time, because I just put them on the same mixer track and mixed them all together, and all of these 3 elements are sounding like this. And then for the effects on this perk loop and these accents, I had this soothe on the hard setting, and I had this EQ where I cut out some of the lows and a lot of the highs just to duck it fully into the background, because it's obviously just there to give the whole sample more texture. Then for the next thing, I had this vocal phrase from Splice, I think, and it's a pretty dark vocal phrase. It's like a choir, and I just pitched it down by 4 to bring it into key, put the declicking mode on generic, put the mode on stretch, and then for the second part I just had this volume multiplier because it was clicking when it switched up right here, even though I had the declicking mode on generic, and the whole vocal phrase is sounding like this. And then for the effects on this vocal phrase, I had this fully parametric EQ where I took out a lot of the harsh frequencies. Then this Valhalla vintage verb where I tweaked the mix, the decay and the low cut. Then this soothe on the hard setting. And then this EQ where I just cut out the muddy lows because they weren't necessary for the whole sample. And I put it 90% in mono because it was too wide for me. And that's basically it for the effects on this vocal phrase. Then for the last thing for the sample, I used this bass which is named Ferno, and I laid down this pretty simple pattern. It's basically just the root notes from the string pattern, but with a little bit of a switch up at the end of each 4 bars, and I left the velocities on its default setting, and the bass line is sounding like this. And then for the effects on this bass, I had this fully parametric EQ where I took out some of the harsh and muddy frequencies. Then this fully fast distortion on its default setting with the mix on 64%. Then this EQ for the harsh frequencies again. Then this soothe on its default settings. Then this EQ for the low lows because they were just muddy. And I put it 100% in mono. Then I put my mastering chain on there, which you can see in my last video. If you haven't seen it, check it out after you watch this video. And after I put the mastering effects on it, I put the declicking mode on generic, put the mode on stretch, and just normalized it. And I put it on the 8th mixer track. And on the 8th mixer track, there is this fully parametric EQ where I just cut out some of the muddy and harsh frequencies, and this EQ just for the muddy lows again. And with the mastering and everything else, the full sample is sounding like this. So now I just opened up the FOP for the beat, and the first thing I did was obviously dragging in the sample, and I just put the declicking mode on generic, put the mode on stretch, and I put the trim knob fully in. And the first thing I did for the beat was laying down this hi-hat pattern, which looks pretty simple, but I had a loop operator on it, which I will show after I preview this pattern, and that's basically all I did, and the full hi-hat pattern is sounding like this. And then for the loop operator, at these settings you can copy them if you want. And if you want a loop operator bank with like 20 or 30 presets, just let me know in the comments and make sure to leave a like for that. And that's basically it for the effects on this hi-hat. Then for the next thing, I had this PYREX clap out of my stash kit. The link for that will be in my description. And I just laid down this pretty basic clap pattern, which sounds like this. Then for the next thing, I had this PYREX openhat, which plays a pretty simple pattern, and I just layered it with the 808 just to give it more power, and the hi-hat, clap and openhat pattern is sounding like this. And then for the last thing, I laid down this pretty busy 808 pattern, which has a few rolls right here, and it just had to give the whole beat the whole bounce, which you will hear in a second. And I basically just freestyled this pattern, so I can't really explain what I did. I just laid down what sounded good, and then I just put my tech in this beat, and the full beat is sounding like this. So yeah guys, if you all enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like and to subscribe to my channel. Make sure to turn on the post notifications as I said, because I'm live streaming a lot. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram. We're about to hit 2,000 followers. That would really mean a lot. Thanks for supporting me all the way. And yeah guys, see y'all.